I vaguely remember the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was a novel little film that brought a new feeling to the slasher genre. Many people calling it the first slasher, forgetting American Psycho was made in the 60s, but it's important to understand that Texas Chainsaw Massacre and its main villain Bubba Sawyer does hold its place in horror history as the world's most non-gory film, if that makes any sense. The entire movie was just unsettling, with everything being in this kind of uncanny valley of being realistic enough, but also not quite right. The framing, dialogue, lighting, and musical score all brought together this very eerie feeling, seldom replicated in later titles of the genre. The goriness of the kills was mostly implied, but the true fear, terror, and helplessness of our main characters was felt through every moment. Bubba Sawyer is a hard character to pin down. I heard in later movies his personality and even motivations kind of completely change. I can't confirm this though, as I've only ever seen the first movie one time like 2 decades ago. From what I do remember, he was kind of mindless, only following the orders of the family and basically only did things because he was told to. That being said, the decision to bring him into Dead by Daylight was inevitable, but how would they implement him? Well, today we are going to find out as we take a look at Bubba's themes, powers, gameplay, perks, add-ons, and more. Check your screen for time codes, and remember this is largely an auditory experience, so feel free to throw this on a second monitor, your phone, Samsung, smart fridge, or whatever, and let's get into Bubba Sawyer, otherwise known as the Cannibal. It was hard to do thematics for Bubba. One of my biggest problems is that my recollection of the movies is minuscule at best, and at worst, I have no idea what I'm talking about. From what I can gather from my feeble memory, Bubba is kind of a dumb brute, blindly following his family's orders and hardly thinking for himself. He also has a lot of excitement when he feels he does well. In that regard, Bubba's mannerisms are, for the most part, very accurately portrayed. The Mori is probably one of my favorites in both its brutality and the little celebration he does on his kill. That being said, everything else kind of falls apart for me. His perks don't really fit Bubba as a character, neither thematically nor in a gameplay sense. He is an M2 killer with 2 perks that only work on basic attacks, and his aura reading isn't something that he can take massive advantage of. In thematics, the name of Franklin's demise and its effects matches the movie, but not really Bubba himself. Barbecue and Chili is a cute name, given that he's a cannibal, but its effect is almost detached in its irrelevancy. Knockout seems great, but again, its effect is almost detached from the theme of Bubba. And his add-ons don't fare much better. There are some neat ones like Flesh or the Bowls of Chili, but we're back to behaviors, old age, parts of a power, with most things being chainsaw parts. Thankfully, they have moved away from being copy-paste of Billy's add-ons, but overall, it's just all so boring and a little bit disjointed. I remember watching a Mint Skull video a while back that talked about how Bubba might have been a rushed chapter, and the more I look into his thematic design, the more I feel that sentiment might be true. It's incredibly disjointed and frustrating, even his power is kind of uninspired. The chainsaw sweep is neat animation-wise, but outside of that, there's almost nothing substantial. I don't know, I just wish they'd have leaned more into the Sawyers, added more personal effects from other family members, and possibly made the perks a tad more related to Bubba as a person. For themes, I give behavior a 2 out of 5. Overall, just kind of uninspired and detached from the spirit of the character. I feel like his animations and things like the tantrum are all well and good, but he just falls flat in so many other places. I'm gonna say something controversial. Bubba is an M1 killer. I know that seems wild, but stick with me. Bubba's power is the Chainsaw Sweep. You have 3 tokens that regain at a rate of 0.25 charges a second when the chainsaw isn't in use. Feather the chainsaw for too long and you enter a tantrum. Complete your charge and enter the Chainsaw Sweep. During the sweep, you can right-click again to extend the sweep by expanding a token. This sweep lasts 2.5 seconds, and then 1 additional second for each token spent within an additional 1 second added for... What the fuck? Okay, so normally I edit this kind of stuff out, but I want you guys to hear the sentence that I wrote in this script. The sweep lasts 2.5 seconds, and then 1 additional second for each token spent, with an additional 1 second added for each token spent. I'm a fucking professional. Any case, you get the picture. You do 2.5 seconds as a base with 1 token equaling 1 more second from the maximum of 3, meaning you can go up to a total of 4.5 seconds, or 5.5 seconds if you have one of the add-ons. Survivors hit during the chainsaw sweep instantly go down, and you can hit multiple survivors with one hit. One of the problems with the power, and especially the expanding of tokens, and this is something that was pointed out in a Rowby video way back in the day, but you kind of have to learn how to keep an eye on both the what's in front of you and the lower corner of the screen, as the meter that shows how much longer you have on a sweep is at the bottom of the screen. I think that there should be some sort of toggleable option that puts a small meter on the center of your screen, not anything big or very invasive, but just something that kind of shows how much longer you have left, because otherwise understanding how to properly use the chainsaw is a shitload of experience. You basically have to have some sort of built-in muscle memory, otherwise you're going to end up expending tokens way too soon, or you're going to right-click way too late and you're not going to get the extension that you need. In any case, if you bump or tickle the chainsaw's clitoris for too long, you'll enter a tantrum. Tantrum durations last relevant to the amount of tokens spent, and any survivor that touches you during a tantrum instantly goes down. While you are in a tantrum, you move basically at nothing. It's something like 0.80 meters per second or something like that. You really can't move at all during it. So don't expect to bump and then instantly be able to chase down a survivor. That's not how it works. Bubba moves at a 5.35 meters a second while chainsaw sweeping. I'd say Bubba's skill floor is in between a low and a medium. If I were to judge it out of 5, it'd be about a 2. Not overly complicated, but there is some skill expression involved in things like Flick Bubba, and some other more complicated loops require a little bit more know-how to navigate. His skill ceiling, however, is extremely low, and this is where we return to that sentence I mentioned at the beginning of this section. Bubba's power has 2 uses: camping and ignoring body blocks. Outside of that, Bubba might as well be an M1 killer with no lunge. Because of how the chainsaw sweep works, and because 5.35 meters a second is not as fast as you think it is, Bubba often finds himself at the mercy of pallets, long loops, god buildings, and more. Normally, the way we define an M1 killer is based off whether or not their primary source of damage is an M1, and M1 killers are always inherently weaker due to game design. Even the strongest M1 killers like Pinhead and arguably Oni have to have massive strengths to overcome that weaknesses, and them being M1 killers holds them back from being too high in the A tier. So why call Bubba an M1 killer if his primary source of damage comes from his chainsaw? And simply put, because the chainsaw acts like an M1 attack. You have to be up their ass to get the hit, and even though it's insta-down, it works very similar to Myers' power, where its strength doesn't really make up for the fact that you still have to be on top of them. What saves Bubba from the D or F tier is the fact that he has good crowd control and he punishes altruism extremely well, but it's still not good enough to bump him up to B. I had erroneously thought when the hitbox changes and minor buffs had come to him during the Vecna patch would bring him up, but all it did was move his position from bottom to top of C tier. Truth is, no matter what you do to him, he's never going to be that good, and that feels kind of bad. Outside of some outlandish shit like making double engravings base kit, Bubba is always going to suffer from this kind of M1 weakness due to his inherent design and the way his power works. Let's move on to perk recommendations. Stay away from M1 perks and ones that require you to kick gens for the most part. Vault perks and ones that block windows are your best friends. You also do really well with slugging builds like Infectious Forced Hesitation because of your crowd control abilities. Try and make sure you have some anti-exhaustion and passive slowdown and you should be fine. You can't defend hexes or take advantage of cross-map information, so stick to the things you can control. Undetectable is always going to be strong on M1 killers, so take advantage of those as well. Finally, how does it feel to play against Bubba? I'd say it's fine. Overall, Bubba is easy to play against, and a lot of whether you go down or not depends on ping, RNG, or dead zones. I know a lot of people love playing against a Bubba, but I'm gonna be honest, that often comes down to how easy he is to loop. It's very similar to the way this community used to treat Billy back in his overheat days, where everybody loved to play against the Billy because Billy was a shit killer back then, and it was very easy to overcome a hillbilly. But then after he got his buffs, now everybody's like, man, I don't like the hillbilly. I go down because I got used to playing against a dog shit killer. Right? It's one of those things that just is outstandingly frustrating to listen to, and I'm not saying that everybody likes playing against Bubba because of that, but I am saying that the vast majority of the time that you hear people saying they like playing against Bubba, it's because he's incredibly easy to loop. Overall, I'd give Behavior a 3 out of 5 for power and gameplay. Painfully average, with little to no fun to be had on either side, at least in my opinion. I don't find Bubba fun to play, I don't find him fun to play against, I'm kind of just apathetic toward the character in general, and I think that the only purpose he really serves is meme potential. While thematically kind of shit, Bubba's perks are actually incredibly solid gameplay-wise. None of them are what I'd consider bad or even unhealthy for the game, so let's take a quick look. Barbecue and Chili. When hooking a survivor, all survivors at least 40 meters away from you are revealed for 5 seconds. This is an excellent tracking perk that can be used realistically on any killer. Many people only use it on killers with map traversal, but honestly you can use it just to understand where to go next. Although it is important to remember that even though you know where to go next, if you can't get there fast enough, it's hard to follow up on that information. The only real problem with the perk is its map dependency. Smaller or 2-level maps will suffer from the range requirement, but overall, it's an enjoyable perk that I personally love to run on many of my killers. Franklin's Demise allows you to knock items out of survivors' hands with a basic attack, or an M1. Afterwards, the item loses its charges over 90 seconds. This is a direct counter to pretty much all items, and while some people find it annoying, I wouldn't call it unhealthy necessarily. The biggest annoyance that I find with it is when I need an item for an archive, but I did find out that the depletion of Franklin's does count for those deplete X amount of items archives, and it also bizarrely counted for an archive that had me extend the usage of an item with Streetwise. I don't know how that happened. Overall, it falls into what I'd call a tech perk, of which there are only 2 in the game, used only when you see survivors with certain items in their hands. I've spoken on this before, especially back in my Billy video, but we'll say it again. Lightborn is when you see 2 or more flashlights in the lobby, and Franklin's is when you see 2 or more medkits in the lobby. If you see both, then it's just better to run just Franklin's. There is never going to be a scenario where you need to run both Franklin's and Lightborn, so yeah. Finally, we have Knockout, perhaps one of the least talked about perks in Dead by Daylight. Whenever you knock a survivor with a basic attack, their aura is hidden from the other survivors, who are at least 16 meters away from them while they are on the ground. For the next 15 seconds, the survivor is on the ground, has a limited FOV. Now the wiki says they are deafened, but the deafened status effect does not show up, and if you read the perk in-game, it also doesn't show up there. They are affected by the blindness status effect instead, and their crawling speed is reduced by 50%, and their recovery speed is reduced by 25% for the next 15 seconds. What this basically means is Knockout is a slugging perk, used exclusively in slugging builds, but here's the thing that makes this perk not that great. It is only useful on Myers. No other M1 killer has the slugging potential that Myers does, because every hard slugging killer uses M2s to do so. Bubba, Oni, and Twins are all the quintessential slugging killers that use their M2, i.e. not their basic attack, to make those kind of things happen. That's not to say it can't be good on other killers, but its power is mostly derived from the amount of information it prevents from being given in solo queue. While mildly annoying, it doesn't honestly do as much as people think it does, and I'd argue it's perfectly fine, if not an aggravating perk. For overall perk design, I'll give Behavior a 5 out of 5. I can't really find anything wrong with any of them, and I think they are all fine as is. There's no buffs or nerfs or any changes that I would make to any of them, and I think that they're just all around really solidly designed perks. So, yeah. Bubba's add-on spread surprised me a bit. I was honestly kind of shocked at the amount of creativity on display, with a couple of add-ons giving minor perk effects to his chainsaw in miniature ways. What happened to this design philosophy? Because Nurse had something similar, as did Wraith. However, there are several add-ons you simply don't need, ones that reduce the charge time of tokens or cooldowns, as well as ones that reduce your tantrum timer. In particular, the purple add-on that adds an extra charge but severely cripples your sweep is unneeded as well. His chili add-ons are his best ones, increasing the duration of the sweep, and often combined with the scratches, makes his sweeps faster and longer. His iridescents are really strong, and that's good because I know soon we'll be getting into bad iridescents, and boy do I not look forward to that. Overall, Behavior gets another 3 out of 5 for an average design. Not bad, but not great either. A lot of creativity on display with some useful, powerful ones as well, and some ones that are useless on the other side. I think generally speaking, whenever I'm looking at these add-ons, they're just kind of meh. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. The final score for Bubba comes out to an average of 3.25 out of 5. which makes sense. Bubba at the end of the day is inoffensive, a middle-of-the-road character with simple feeling and simple mechanics. There's nothing special about him, but his averageness isn't as bad as, say, Wraith's. When I think of Bubba, I think of face camping and a goofy walk cycle, and not much else. He's not very memorable, and while I personally find him boring to play, I also kind of see the community's dotting on him. He's a goofy little guy with goofy stereotypes, and at the end of the day, I will leave him in my only play if necessary box. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please let me know what you think down below. I really appreciate the patience on this one coming out. I know it's not very long, and you might think, well, what took you so long? And the truth is that I just kind of didn't really want to do it. It's not that it was an inoffensive video, or it's not that it was an offensive video to make, or like there was a lot of headache involved. I didn't find talking about Bubba very interesting, but hopefully you did. And as always, a great big special thank you to my channel members listed on screen now. If you want to find out how to become a channel member today and get awesome perks like seeing videos early, merch discount codes, and more, then please click that join button down below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Need more Kaiser in your life? Well, I've got you covered. Check out my second channel, Kaiser Extras, where I upload full gameplays, stream compilations, me reacting to your Dead by Daylight clips, and more. We also upload a daily short with all the greatest clips from stream. We'll see you over there. Link is in the description.